Okay, new kid, we have all new rules this time. Now you can play alone or with 3 of your closest friends.
South Park Snow Day is the latest entry in the South Park video game series, which began with the Stick of Truth and was followed by the Fractured But Whole. Developed by Question of the Magic Circle and the Blackout Club fame, and published by THQ Nordic, Snow Day sets itself apart from the previous 2 entries in its franchise by eschewing the show-accurate animation style and instead displays the town of South Park and its characters as fully modeled 3D characters. The result, in combination with the game's plot, is heavily reminiscent of South Park for the Nintendo 64, at least in terms of theme, visuals, and overall quality. There are a few things to like about Snow Day. Player abilities, which are represented by crudely drawn playing cards clearly meant to have been made by the kids themselves, are appropriately equal parts vulgar and ridiculous. The story itself considers both Stick of Truth and Fractured But Whole canon, without being an actual sequel, with the player character ostensibly being the same new kid from both of those previous adventures. As such, many of your powers will once again come from farting, a premise which has unfortunately already had most of its enjoyment squeezed out of it before the game really starts. South Park Snow Day does not always feel great to play. The characters are floaty, the attacks lack any feeling of weight or heft, and the otherwise cool-sounding special powers players can access, like Laser Eye Heat Vision or the ability to grow super large and smash your opponents, are uniformly lackluster. Gone is the role-playing gameplay of Fractured But Whole. Most of your time on Snow Day simply consists of waddling around in the snow and mashing the attack button to make it through waves of barely dangerous NPCs, and mid-game bullshit card activations, which cause certain rules to change during missions, like replacing all your melee weapons with useless pool noodles. Those are more annoying than they are mechanically interesting. As a video game, playing South Park Snow Day feels more like playing a reskinned version of Back 4 Blood with even more of its edges sanded off. Players begin in the Koopa Keep, a cordoned-off section of backyards behind Cartman's house, with acts as a hub where you can purchase upgrades or outfit changes, swap out your weapon loadouts, and select which string of missions you want to go on. Snow Day is built around co-op, although bots will appear to fill the empty roster if you prefer to play offline, and while there is a story which acts as a through line, it's clear these plot missions are more meant to be replayed over and over again. There's also a Horde mode, which Henrietta unlocks after the second mission, which players can attempt as many times as they want for extra rewards and quote-unquote replay value. The ability to upgrade cards between areas brings something approaching tactics to the table, but in practice, no choice ever feels vital over the other. Arenas come in defeat all the enemies, defeat all the waves of enemies, and complete the objective while either defeating or avoiding enemies variety. And each string of missions ends in a boss battle against one of the more prominent members of the South Park cast. None of these battles are remotely challenging in any aspect, and each string of missions can be completed in roughly 15 to 30 minutes, maybe an hour if you're on harder difficulties. Being a South Park property, one hopes humor would carry the lesser aspects of the game on its shoulders to at least deliver an enjoyable playtime session. Unfortunately, the writing and line delivery in South Park Snow Day is the weakest out of all 3 new kid entries such far. I try not to criticize humor in games too much because it's such a subjective element, but it's inexcusable here. The entire game seems trapped in some sort of 2021 post-COVID haze where toilet paper is the commodity every adult in town hoards and weak, gullible people, quote-unquote, are placated with literal barrels of NFTs. It's satire in its absolute weakest form, and considering how biting and poignant South Park can be, it's simply embarrassing to see its comedy so low here. Bad comedy is made worse by bad sound. Characters in South Park Snow Day often feel as if they are in different rooms from one another, with audio quality varying drastically between single line reads in the same conversation, and volume levels of earby NPCs seemingly unaffiliated with how far they actually are to you. Certain animations and particle effects also seem to be unreliably consistent at the best of times. I chose to stick with a flame-spurting wand for the majority of my playthrough, but pressing the fire button seemed to only activate the jets of flame about 75% of the time. In these instances, I had to rely on just orange lighting effects on the snow and damage numbers over the enemies' heads to confirm that, I was actually hitting them. South Park Snow Day goes out of its way numerous times to ensure players that they are the one special new kid, and all the other new kids are ignorable, unimportant losers. It's meta humor of the weakest quality, but low-effort comedy is kind of par for the course here, constantly degrading the main character while simultaneously reassuring them that, hey, you are the most important person in this world, creates this weird juxtaposition where the new kid feels even more unnecessary to the plot than in past South Park games. It's hard to determine who Snow Day is meant to be for. The ideal player of South Park Snow Day probably has 3 other friends who are extremely into South Park to the point that they enjoy anything with the characters' faces painted on it. And those 3 friends also enjoy battling waves upon waves of unintelligent NPC fodder with single button mashes while occasionally pressing 1 or 2 other buttons for a special ability. These 4 friends should also laugh hilariously at the idea of a Taylor Swift album fetching nearly half a roll on the toilet paper black market. And honestly, if that one joke doesn't snag you, it's all downhill from there. South Park Snow Day is a co-op arena battler with only the basics of combat and the basics of South Park holding it together. And unless you are absolutely dying to see the snow-covered town represented in 3 dimensions for the first time since South Park Rally in 2000, it can safely be skipped. South Park Snow Day releases on March 26, 2024 for the PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and the Nintendo Switch. Screen Rant was provided a PS5 code for the purposes of this review.
Now listen, Clyde has information that the elves are preparing to launch a massive attack on our kingdom. They've been spotted advancing their forces near Stark's Pond. We have to take them out before they kill us all.